There are some television characters who entertain us for a while and then slowly fade into memory. And then there are a select few who become something more. They become part of a shared cultural experience, a reminder of a certain time, a certain feeling, and sometimes even a certain part of ourselves. For countless fans of MASH, Gary Burghoff represents exactly that kind of lasting connection. Decades after the series first captured audiences around the world, and even now in 2026, conversations about MASH almost always find their way back to one name: Gary Burghoff. Not because he was the loudest performer on the show, not because he chased headlines or remained constantly in the spotlight. In many ways, it is the opposite. His impact has endured because of something far more difficult to achieve: authenticity. When people remember MASH, they remember the humor, the memorable storylines, and the remarkable ensemble cast. But they also remember a character who felt unusually real. A character who could make audiences laugh one moment and quietly break their hearts the next. That character was Radar O'Reilly, and behind Radar was Gary Burghoff. What makes this story so fascinating is that Gary Burghoff's connection to the role began before many viewers even discovered the television series. He portrayed Radar in the original film version of MASH and later carried that role into television, creating a rare continuity between two very different versions of the same story. That alone would be noteworthy. But what happened afterward is what truly cemented his place in television history. Radar could easily have become a one-dimensional comic character. On paper, he possessed qualities that might have pushed him in that direction. He was young, innocent, and often found himself at the center of humorous situations. Yet Gary Burghoff brought something deeper to the role. He gave Radar warmth. He gave him vulnerability. Most importantly, he gave him humanity. Viewers didn't simply watch Radar, they cared about him. Part of that connection came from the way Burghoff portrayed innocence without making it feel unrealistic. Radar lived in a challenging environment, surrounded by stress and uncertainty, yet he maintained a sense of kindness that never felt forced. That balance is incredibly difficult for any performer to achieve. Even today, audiences revisiting the series often find themselves surprised by how naturally his performance holds up. While television styles change over time, authenticity rarely goes out of fashion. And authenticity was at the center of everything Gary Burghoff brought to the screen. Another reason he continues to matter in 2026 is because he represents an era of television that many viewers feel is becoming increasingly rare. Modern entertainment often moves at a rapid pace. Characters can be larger than life. Stories can become bigger, louder, and more complex. There is nothing inherently wrong with that. But when fans return to MASH, they often discover something different. They find character-driven storytelling. They find emotional depth. They find performances that rely less on spectacle and more on genuine connection. Gary Burghoff's work stands as a powerful example of that approach. His scenes rarely demanded attention through grand gestures. Instead, they invited viewers to lean in and pay attention to smaller moments. A glance, a reaction, a quiet expression. Those subtle details helped make Radar unforgettable, and perhaps that is one reason younger audiences continue discovering him today. Many people assume that older television programs only appeal to those who originally watched them, yet streaming platforms and digital media have introduced classic series to entirely new generations. As a result, many viewers encountering MASH for the first time are experiencing Gary Burghoff's performance without any nostalgia attached. They are judging it purely on its own merits, and remarkably, it still resonates. That says something important. It suggests that the qualities audiences admired decades ago remain meaningful today. Compassion, humility, loyalty, sincerity, these traits are timeless. As new viewers discover Radar, they often find themselves connecting with those same qualities. But there is another layer to Gary Burghoff's legacy that deserves attention. Unlike many television stars who remained constantly visible throughout their careers, Burghoff chose a different path. After leaving MASH, he largely stepped away from the kind of relentless public exposure that often defines celebrity culture. That decision has contributed to a certain sense of mystery surrounding him. Fans continue discussing his work not because they see him everywhere, but because they remember the impact he made when he was on screen. In a world where visibility often feels constant, there is something unusual about a performer whose legacy rests primarily on the quality of the work itself. And that may actually strengthen his enduring appeal. People remember the character, they remember the stories, they remember how those moments made them feel. The focus remains on the performance rather than the celebrity. That distinction matters. As the years have passed, many television historians and longtime viewers have pointed to Radar as one of the most memorable characters in television history. While every fan has their own favorite member of the MASH cast, Radar consistently remains near the top of those conversations. That level of staying power is not accidental. Characters endure when they connect with something universal. Radar represented the part of human nature that wants to believe in goodness even during difficult circumstances. He reminded viewers that kindness can coexist with adversity. Those themes remain relevant no matter how much the world changes. And because Gary Burghoff embodied those qualities so convincingly, his work continues to feel meaningful. Now, here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Many fans remember specific episodes, memorable lines, and emotional moments involving Radar. But what often goes unnoticed is how much the character helped shape the emotional identity of the entire series. MASH balanced humor and drama in ways that were unusual for television at the time. That balance required characters who could serve as emotional anchors. Radar often fulfilled that role. Through Burghoff's performance, viewers gained a perspective that was hopeful, compassionate, and deeply human. Without that presence, the series might have felt very different. In other words, Gary Burghoff wasn't simply part of MASH. He helped define its emotional tone. And once you recognize that, it becomes difficult to imagine the show's success without him. This realization often hits fans when they revisit older episodes years later. What once seemed effortless reveals itself as highly skilled acting. The best performances frequently work that way. They feel so natural that audiences forget they are watching a performance at all. That was one of Burghoff's greatest strengths. He disappeared into the role. Even people who know his name often think of Radar first. That level of identification between actor and character is rare. It speaks to the depth of his contribution. There is also an emotional element that keeps Gary Burghoff relevant today. For many longtime viewers, watching MASH is connected to family memories. It reminds them of evenings spent with parents, grandparents, siblings, or friends. Television becomes more than entertainment when it intertwines with personal history, because Radar was such a beloved presence on the show. Burghoff became part of those memories as well. When fans revisit the series, they are not only reconnecting with a character, they are reconnecting with moments from their own lives. That emotional bond helps explain why discussions about Gary Burghoff continue so many years later. It is not simply about nostalgia, it is about meaning, and meaning tends to last. As 2026 continues, entertainment options are more abundant than ever. Audiences have access to an enormous variety of shows, films, and streaming content. Yet despite all of those choices, classic series continue finding new audiences. MASH remains one of the most frequently discussed examples of television that transcends generations. Whenever that conversation happens, Gary Burghoff remains an essential part of it. His work serves as a reminder that great performances are not defined by special effects, elaborate production, or constant publicity. They are defined by emotional truth. People remember how a performance made them feel. That memory can survive for decades. In Burghoff's case, it clearly has. And perhaps that brings us to the deepest reason he still matters to MASH fans today. His legacy reflects something audiences are always searching for, whether they realize it or not. Connection, the ability to recognize ourselves in a story, the ability to care about a character, the ability to feel understood through a performance. Gary Burghoff achieved that through Radar O'Reilly. He created a character who felt genuine, approachable, and unforgettable. Years later, fans still talk about him because the emotional connection remains intact. Television trends have changed. The entertainment industry has evolved. Generations have come and gone. Yet somehow, the impact of that performance continues. And maybe that is the ultimate measure of success, not how loudly a legacy announces itself, Not how often a name appears in headlines, but how deeply the work stays with people. For Gary Burghoff, that connection has endured across decades. It continues through longtime fans who never stopped appreciating his contribution. It continues through younger viewers discovering MASH for the very first time. And it continues through every conversation about the series that inevitably circles back to the character who quietly became one of television's most beloved figures. In the end, Gary Burghoff still matters in 2026 because authenticity never goes out of style. Great storytelling never loses its power, and characters who touch people's hearts rarely fade away. Radar O'Reilly remains unforgettable because Gary Burghoff made him feel real. That achievement is as meaningful today as it was when audiences first welcomed him into their homes. And if the lasting affection of generations of fans tells us anything, it is that some performances do more than entertain. They become part of our cultural memory. They become part of us. If you enjoyed this look at Gary Burghoff's enduring legacy and what makes his connection to MASH so special, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more stories about television history and iconic performers, and share your own memories in the comments below. What is it about Gary Burghoff or Radar O'Reilly that has stayed with you all these years? I'd love to hear your thoughts.